TGCRequiem here. Alright, we are playing Modern Abzan Traverse. This seems okay. I mean, the hand isn't really doing a ton, but I think the baubles set us up pretty well. I mean, we have access to the mana we need. We can push. We can use bauble to help set up push. I mean, a couple pieces of removal plus Liliana. We can hope to pretty easily draw into, I shouldn't say pretty easily, but we should be able to hope to draw into a creature or have an active traverse by the time we get it and need a creature. So I think this is a keepable hand for sure. I want to thank my brother Raven's Eye. He gave me a visit him in Chicago this weekend, and he hooked me up with a sweet new layout for the channel here, so hopefully you enjoy. I mean, it's pretty much the same layout that I had before, kind of wanted it that way. Assuming the opponent's going to take the Liliana here, though it is possible to go for one of the pieces of removal depending on their deck. If they're like a... so let's say they may go for an Abrupt Decay if they're if they have multiple pieces of hand disruption, or if they are like an 8-rack type deck where the permanent that they use is non-creature. So I think we're going to start with bauble, take a peek at our hand to see if we want to draw what we're going to bauble. Traverse the Uvenwald. We already have an instant. We're probably losing creature. I think Traverse is fine. But I think we're actually just going to hold Verdant Catacombs here. I'm just going to hold bauble for a moment. We'll wait till we draw the Traverse before we crack our fetch for sure. Okay, so it looks like Grixis Shadow, probably. My brother's a graphic artist by trade, and so he just kind of gave me something a little more streamlined, that kind of I guess a little more professional looking in terms of what fit into my existing plan. Okay, so now I'm a little confused. Knight's Whisper. You draw 2 cards and lose 2 life. I would almost think my opponent's playing Grishelbrand if they hadn't taken the Abrupt Decay. That almost makes me wonder if they're playing maybe like that red-black Waste Not deck. Has Terminate. So we know the Terminate's coming out. We have a Grim Flayer. They may be in more of a control style build, so it might be better. I don't know, I think we need to probably try to get something down early here. I like playing the Shrine, and I think we're going to lead with the Tarmogoyf. Tarmogoyf is like a pretty basic must terminate, and that allows the Flayer to be a 4/4. Since we're playing against Grixis, while it certainly could be like a Tasker we can't get through, our opponent... Actually, does our opponent know about the Tarmogoyf? They do not know about the Tarmogoyf. Still feel like we want to play the Tarmogoyf because the Grim Flayer can give us a lot of card advantage. And then next turn we can traverse for like a forest and play a creature. So we're going to go for the most damage. If our opponent doesn't immediately kill it, that's good for us. If they do immediately kill it, that's still fine for us. So we'll just replace it with a Grim Flayer, probably get a fetch, and that'll be able to fetch us a forest. Now we can play the Grim Flayer, set up Liliana of the Veil for the following turn. But if the opponent doesn't immediately kill the creature, Tarmogoyf does more damage for us. So they're going to go after Liliana here, I would presume. This is also going to turn on our traverses. This puts the opponent on a very quick clock. Okay, so now we're actually going to use traverses for creatures. So again, this will set us up with the ability to, next turn, go after another traverse. Play another Tarmogoyf, get a traverse for another creature, something to that effect. So we know the opponent's almost certainly going for a Terminate here. I'd assume they're going to terminate the Tarmogoyf, because if they terminate the Grim Flayer, they won't be able to crack a fetch. I guess it doesn't matter. That was a mistake there. We actually needed to hold off on traversing until next turn to keep the Liliana on top. I think we're just going to keep jamming Tarmogoyfs here, though. Suppose we could get Scoos and rip a Terminate, but I don't think that's what we want here. And we still have access to cracking the Verdant Catacombs for a fatal push if we need to kill something. Maybe they're playing like the black creature here. Alright. So we get a win. Alrighty. So we don't have a whole lot of information on what our opponent's doing. They kind of seem like maybe a black-red control deck that just didn't really get there. Don't know what is going to do much for us. They did want to get rid of the Abrupt Decay, which makes me think we could possibly hedge towards a Reclamation Sage. But beyond that, I'm not sure there's a whole lot that we learned here. The opponent didn't seem to have a lot of creatures, so I don't know that path is necessary. Similarly, we don't know that push is really doing much of anything. I do feel like Liliana, the Last Hope, is probably not the greatest from what we've seen, so I think we can cut that. I'm going to bring in the Reclamation. That's all I'm going to do for now, and then we'll just kind of see what our opponent's deck looks like more in game 2. Sorry, I just pulled up my game tracker here. Didn't mean to leave it on screen. So I think this hand is pretty decent. It's, you know, our opponent's on the play, so they're gonna maybe strip our turn 1 Thoughtseize. This makes it a little weaker. But in general, I think this is keepable, especially on the draw. I mean, ideally we're gonna go turn 1 Thoughtseize, turn 2 Tarmogoyf. Leyline of the Void. Okay, so that actually makes the Reclamation Sage pretty great here. So we want to increase our odds of drawing another land, so we're not going to crack the Marsh Flats here. Canyon Slough, cycling lands. Yeah, I'm not quite sure what our opponent is up to here. So they definitely seem like they're just black-red, despite playing the, you know, the Marsh Flats and whatnot. Based on their hand, I can't imagine that they're running Blood Moon. I think we're kind of safe to just run out Marsh Flats. Or Blooming Marsh, rather. But actually, I almost kind of want to just get a white mana source just to have it. Be done with that. We know our opponent is pretty thin on playable cards. Thankfully our Tarmogoyf is still decently large, since Leyline of the Void only hits our graveyard. Our opponent still has cards in the graveyard. We're going to Reclamation Sage of the Leyline, which will make the Goyf a 3/4. Probably next turn. So the opponent's going to take the turn to cycle their Sloth. Canyon Slough. I don't know how to pronounce that. Into a new card. Play their Swamp. So we're down to 1 card that we know left in their hand. Blood Moon. Did not. Literally said. No, I don't think they're playing Blood Moon. So we really need to draw like a forest, or we're in a bit of trouble. If I'd have known that our opponent was going to play Blood Moon, I would have been much more apt to play a Swamp, or get a Swamp than a Plains. Plains only does so much here. If we do draw a path, we could path our own Tarmogoyf to get a green mana source, which may be worth it. Alright, looks like we got a Dreadbore on the Tarmogoyf, so pathing is out of... Ugh, okay. So it makes sense then why they went after the Abrupt Decay. Okay, and they are Demigod of Revenge. So this is not terribly surprising, something that I thought it could have possibly been. So Demigod, Flying Haste, when you cast or return all cards. Name Demigod from graveyard to battlefield. Okay. So they gotta get up to 5 mana. They don't care if almost all their lands turn into red. They just have their deltas to go get them swamps, basically. Path's pretty good here. So now we know, though, with the Demigod, they're probably just a black-red control deck. Probably pretty light on creatures. We want to make sure that whatever spells we have can do big damage, so we're probably a lot more likely to bring in like Big Game Hunter, although that's a little tougher to handle Blood Moon with, but we can be a little more careful with our fetches and traverses to get the basics we need. So had we known, like, we could have turned to, instead of playing the plains, we could have traversed for a forest. That would have opened up a later traverse to get a swamp. We can never find a way to get out from underneath. I think we are going to just pitch the Kalidas here. But yeah, Actually, I think we're going to pitch Inquisition. If they draw a second Blood Moon, they're going to play it, I have to imagine. So I'm not really worried about landing a creature and then also hoping, like landing Reclamation Sage and then also Inquisitioning the same turn. I also don't think Fatal Push is going to be very useful against the creature suite we've seen so far. Reclamation Sage is really what they should be taking here. Yep. So that's going to make it a bit more difficult. I mean, they're probably just holding on to removal at this point. It's going to be tough to stick a few creatures. If we ever hit a green mana source, we can get all the rest of our basics. Wait to crack the bauble till their turn. Not a whole lot to say here, just kind of living or dying based on the drawing of a forest. And that Demigod probably pretty much does it. Save drawing another path and a forest here. Opponent's gonna draw a Thoughtseize. Suppose Lingering Souls maybe buys us a turn or two. we're still almost certainly just out of it. I'd almost have to think they're running Lightning Bolt too. Maybe just kill us on end step. Kolaghan's Command. And then assume that they'll have another removal spell here. And then just get the Demigod in for the win. Yep. Alright. So we'll lose there on turn 15. Very tight, close game off the back of a Blood Moon. We do have the advantage of being on the play for the rubber match here. So knowing what our opponent's up to now, Liliana the Last Hope could actually be pretty good here. Against control, they may not have the right answers to handle Liliana. I don't think Kalitas is really necessary. They're not putting a lot of like damage on us. Creature damage rather. Collective Brutality is okay. Honestly, Surgical Extraction should be great against Demigod if that's their plan to win. Maelstrom Pulse could be good as another way to handle like an Abrupt Decay. Big Game Hunter potentially. And I think beyond that, like Fatal Push obviously doesn't look like it's going to be doing much of anything. Inquisition should be fine. I don't know that we really need Collective Brutalities. I think we're going to actually cut those here. The spells we really are scared of in their deck are the Blood Moon. So I think this is what we're going to run with. And then we'll just hope to surgically extract the Demigod if we can Thought Seize it, or similar to a Blood Moon. Couple basics. No green. This is kind of a risky hand. There are some positives in terms of having two basics, but without a green Manosaurus, we're a little stuck. Can't really do a whole lot. That said, I do feel like this is worth it. We're going to get a couple draws, and worst case, we're going to be able to start Lingering Souls tokens right away. If they draw a Ley Line, well, if we can get a second black source, we get access to Liliana, and once Liliana's down, they're going to have a lot of trouble dealing with it. I suppose they do have some Dreadbores, which is just more reason to probably run extra walkers here, but I think it's a little bit risky, but we're going to be alright here. If the opponent does lead off on a Thought Seize or Inquisition, I suppose we can hope that they pick Lingering Souls, but probably going after like Scooz or Flare. They could probably go after Liliana if they don't have anything that lines up. So they have a, oh, they have an Olivia Valderin, okay. Flare Tarmogoyf. No, I have lots of threats. What we need now is a green mana source, and we need it fast. Oh, this is what happens when you take risky keeps. We're going to get Blood Mooned here now. Almost certainly. Just imagine they're going to go get a swamp. No, they didn't get a swamp, so maybe we're okay. feel like if they had gotten it, okay, so now they'll just go get a second swamp and Blood Moon us. Yep. Well, that's my punishment. Probably just couldn't have afforded to not keep a hand without hand disruption or a way to go get a green mana source. The green mana source is really just more important than the black mana source. Maybe pitch a Demigod here. Figuring they'll draw into one later. The fact that they pitched a Liliana there means we're probably getting a Liliana. Only 2 Lilianas. And if we luck out here and draw into a green source, so the opponent had Olivia, they had the card draw, Damnation, ooh, Path's good draw here. We definitely needed a path for that Olivia. Although we can actually just path a spirit for a forest here, and then we might be onto something. So we could path for a forest, that sets up Maelstrom Pulse the next turn. Plenty of ways to deal with Olivia. The question is, do we do it right now, or do we wait till our opponent tries to ping one of our spirits? I think we gotta, well no, because we can't use the green mana source this turn anyway, so. That also allows us to pitch the Lingering Souls, excellent. So the hope here is that they're going to try and double ping with Olivia. On the second ping, we'll path in response. Liliana, the last hope, if we draw into another black mana source, can handle the fairies. The question is, I guess we don't need to destroy the Blood Moon at this point. I think we actually need to destroy Olivia. And then Liliana can start to ping the fairies while we put enough threats out that the opponent has to use their damnation. But I think we do just have to kill the Liliana or the Olivia first. Alright, so I think the Liliana, I guess we don't have a black mana source anyway. So I think we're looking at Grim Flare. That way we can get some trample damage in over the fairies. Opponent, I guess, isn't really worried about Liliana, considering I probably can't get a second black mana source without Abrupt Decay. Opponent is starting to put themselves into a little bit of a pinch. We could use Scavenging Ooze to gain some life as well, though one would have to imagine the opponent's sitting on some removal. Okay, so Overgrown Tomb, we don't really want to do damage to ourselves here. Even though it's only going to be a mountain, what that will allow us to do is play a Scavenging Ooze and Lingering Souls, and that buys us time against the Bitter Blossom. And so I think that is actually what we need to do here. Suppose we could traverse for a Reclamation Sage on the Blood Moon. But I think we've... We're taking a chance that they don't draw Hand Disruption. I think the Grim Flare... We can't do Grim Flare on that, so I think we have to go Scavenging Ooze. The problem is they don't really put enough pressure on the fairies. So I think the next turn's plan is going to be traverse into Reclamation Sage, probably at Blood Moon. We're more than willing to trade off our spirits for fairies here. It's okay, we're already at 4 cards. And we know our opponent has a Damnation. Another Blood Moon. The problem here is if we, oh man. I think what this tells us is we cannot, well, no, sacrifice full mana mage, destroy target non-basic. Yeah, so we can take the Blood Moon here. We can traverse for Reclamation Sage. And then just put a little pressure on the opponent. We can Reclamation Sage the Blood Moon. They can't use the Fulminator Mage. to blow up our forest. They could blow up the overgrown tomb, but it doesn't matter. Reclamation Sage can get the Blood Moon then. Gets us out from underneath that. Does stop us from using Liliana. Although at this point, if our opponent's going to keep attacking our life total, I think we just start pressuring them with Scavenging Ooze and Grim Flayer. It does our opponent, if they have to Damnation, that doesn't really do them a whole lot of good. I suppose we could blow up their Bitter Blossom at this point. What's that like? I think I would rather blow up their Blood Moon. They're going to lose, they're going to go down to 6. If they don't block, I mean they can only do 2 if they have to keep blocking each turn. I think we wait and see what they do with blocks here first. So now I think we just go after Blood Moon. We're putting enough pressure on our opponent. Now, where if they try and, they're really going to have to almost attack in Damnation. Liliana's going to start killing off their creatures where we're putting enough pressure on them. I think that we can handle it, especially considering the fact we'll be able to Liliana and use Scavenging Ooze to eat. If the opponent does not Damnation right here, they could just lose. I feel like they have to trade off the Reclamation Sage versus chumping the Skoos. And now Liliana cuts down their clock. They can't really even pressure Liliana at this point, which almost forces the opponent to have to Damnation after attacks this turn, unless they just plan to just spend their turns buying time. But Grim Flayer really puts the pressure on that game plan. Opponent discards a couple ley lines. So Demigod of Revenge would be good here now. Push is fine. Again, they're just probably trying to draw to a Demigod at this point. Bitter Blossom's going to kill themselves, unfortunately for them. So we could, instead of killing the Fairy Rogue, down tick. No, I guess the Scavenging Ooze is gone with the ley line in play already. We're really just counting on their Bitter Blossom finishing them off for us. If they draw a Demigod here, we will lose to it. if they don't, I think we're probably alright. Damnation does nothing for them, unless they can get rid of their own Bitter Blossom, but they're black-red, so really no way to destroy an enchantment. So I think they're attacking and they're going to just fire off a Damnation post-combat. But this does just leave them dead on upkeep. Maybe they have a way to gain life that I'm not thinking of. Collective Brutality in hand, perhaps. Yep. Really, unfortunately, what we need here is a path. The opponent's not going to be able to get their Bitter Blossom out from under Liliana, so they have to draw Demigod. Like if they had Demigod, they'd fire it off. Yeah, so they haven't. They've conceded. They didn't get what they needed. All right, so we got there. Definitely think I made a mistake this third game. We got away with it, but I should not have kept a hand that didn't have a way to handle and a way to play around or handle a Blood Moon. But thankfully we got there. If you enjoyed, feel free to subscribe. In the middle on the left we have the link to the next video in the league, and on the right we have the link to the Abzan Traverse playlist. We'll see you in the next one.